Felix and Winston here, and we've spent the entire morning reading what Wall Street's finest have got to say about the market, and then I looked at mainstream media and none of this was mentioned. And Winston said to me, Felix, we need to do something about that even on such a glorious day as this one here, as our hair is taking off. And honestly, if you don't understand the following 4 key data points, you'll be rudderless this coming week, and my intention is to give you that rudder and make sure you have some real clarity about what's going on here, even as my hair is taking off. And then I want to give you also what to watch out for next week, plus 3 bonus points, which are like actionable items I think every investor out there should be doing. And of course, Winston is the one who did all the research here, so Winston Investor in the chat, so I know that you're listening and you're going to get some value out of this. So I've made some notes to make sure, actually Winston did obviously, to make sure this is really useful for you. So, okay, first things first, what the heck's going on there? What's the US government up to? Well, Trump seems to have a playbook, which is create as much uncertainty as possible and use that to lower interest rates. How does that work? Well, if you create unemployment, which they've done by firing government employees, and by creating uncertainty, it means industry doesn't invest as much. That in itself will lower the expectations of interest rates and therefore actual interest rates. And we've seen that. It's actually quite successful. Now, us stock investors are like, but what about us? What about us? I thought you were going to be great for the stock market. Well, he basically came out and said, we're going to have to go through some short-term uncertainty here, a bit of wobbliness, and then it's going to be the most amazing stock market in the history of the world. Isn't that what he said, Winston? Something like that. So that's just to understand the playbook. This seems to be intentional. The chaos seems to be somewhat organized, which has me, I'm a permanent optimist. So hopefully that's going to come to an end sometime. It might take a while. I mean, they're talking about September. Then let's look up to what the market's doing. So traders, that's the guys on Wall Street, the hedge funds, the banks, they are insanely bearish right now. Just look at the small cap chart here. This is chart number, well, second item, but first chart here. And what does it show you? It shows you that the call to put volume ratio has absolutely plunged. Calls, you buy them when you're bullish. Puts, you buy when you're terrified. Winston, what are you sniffing at? What is this little dog sniffing at? Come on a little closer. What is that saying to you? Well, have a look at the chart and what happened every time we got those. When we were in bear markets, it marked the end of the bear market. He needs his eyes cleaning, doesn't he? And when it was a bull market, it was the end of a correction, just historically. That doesn't mean it has to happen this time, but it's sort of an indicator, okay, this could be near the bottom of the dip, and we're going to get onto some actionables on that in a moment, but it's just so important that you understand this so you actually know what's driving this. And number 3 is probably the ultimate driver of stock markets here, as Winston is, have a look at that. There he is, making himself comfortable like a little mountain goat. So what's number 3? Let me scooch down a little bit and you still get him in the shot, which is probably more valuable than me, right? Let's be honest about that. So number 3 is money supply. And money supply is starting to grow. Now they managed to create an extraordinary amount of money during COVID, you probably remember, and then they started to shred it a little bit. Not as successfully as, because once it's out there, it's hard to kind of shred it, but they've done a bit of it, and that actually drives the stock market down, particularly risky assets, so your growth stocks, your crypto, your NASDAQ, and right now, they're starting to print money again. And what does that mean? Well, when the money comes back, money is going to find itself some returns. The money is going to go into stocks and it's going to drive the stock market up. So that is honestly such a key concept to understand. It took me years to understand that. You now do. And if it makes some sense to you, we'll put it in the chat. Just write money supply in the chat, and I know that one landed for you as an explanation. And then the 4th point, before we get on to what to watch out for and the real actionables for this coming week, the 4th one is seasonality. So the stock market goes through this sort of undulations, this pattern, and these patterns are insanely predictable. And I used to think the market was random. I used to think the market just acts on a whim or somebody tweets, but it actually doesn't. And once you understand the patterns, you are able to make much, much better decisions, and it's helped us, well, get to freedom, quite frankly. And we didn't come up with that. I learned it from my mentors, who learned it from their mentors like 30, 40, 50 years ago, because those guys that I learned from have been in the market for that long. They've run hedge funds, they've been on the trading floors of the big exchanges, and they've shared that knowledge and that wisdom with me. And I want to share that with you because I think everybody deserves to understand it. I think everybody deserves to have financial freedom, and I think everybody deserves to have their money work for them rather than work for their money. Because the glorious thing that I realized is that, well, I have a lot of wealthy friends now, very wealthy friends, and they don't think about income. They think about assets and what their assets can do for them, whether that's in terms of capital growth or in terms of income from the assets, but they don't think, oh, I should work a little harder, right? And that's the way we've all been conditioned. Winston hasn't. He's way ahead of the pack, aren't you? You understand that working hard is not for you. So long story short, I want to give you those rules to you, and I will do that. All you're going to do is go to felixprehn.org/get free and literally watch a 15-minute video that I made just for you to understand when do you buy, how do you manage the risk, when do you sell. Like, it's 3 points really, and it gives you very, very, very clear guidance of when we should be buying, when we should not be buying, and I want to get onto that in a moment as well, how this applies to today. But the same system works in bull markets and bear markets. It works all the time. So if you're going to go and learn, put some skills between the ears, then write in the chat skills, and I know that you've gone off and watched that masterclass at felixprehn.org/get free. As I say, link is down below. Now, what do we watch out for? And then what are the 3 sort of bonus actionables from Winston here? Well, we've got to watch out for a couple of key dates this coming week. And that is, and obviously come back to seasonality. I think I skipped that, didn't I? If we put the chart back up for a second, March is not great, as you can see, and then we tend to go to the moon. Now, there is a little bit of the March 2020 in that one, so that data is probably a little bit worse than it is in reality, but over the last 20 years March has not been great, and then we really kick off, so you might need a little bit of patience for the coming week. Now, for the week, we're going to watch out for some key earnings. ORCL on Monday, so Monday is ORCL. Tuesday we get job openings. Why is that important? Because if you're a company and you are worried about the economy slowing down, and we're throwing a little bit of economics here as well to make sure this is as valuable for you as humanly possible, firing people takes time, and it's also unpleasant. Like, I hate firing people. I do it very rarely, which is why I hire quite cautiously. And stopping hiring, however, is the click of a button, right? You just remove the job ad from your website, and that's why job openings data on Tuesday is so important, because it's a leading indicator for how the economy is doing. On Wednesday, we get Adobe and UiPath reporting, 2 quite big kind of sort of AI-related companies out there. That's important. And then also inflation data on Wednesday. So watch out for those. And I'll put the chart here on the screen of the other earnings out there. And there are obviously others, but those are kind of the major ones. So number 6 then, actionables. Do we buy the dip here? Well, my view on that is only buy the dip on index funds, so something like SPY or QQQ or VOO, if, and this is hugely important and always overlooked, you have a long-term horizon. And I'm not talking till Friday. I'm talking years, 5 years, 10 years. If that's your horizon, you're going to add into the market every week or every month some money, then if you're buying the S&P right now, this is probably a pretty good time to do it. Could it go a little lower? Yes, of course it could go somewhat lower. But generally speaking, we're below the 200-day moving average line. That is usually a glorious opportunity to acquire some cheap stocks. Now, number 7, and this is the bottom line here, and probably the most important thing I'm going to say, don't buy the dip on stocks, because the risk is huge. I mean, look at Tesla, for example, right? It's keeps dipping and dipping and dipping, and most people will then at some point, when they're 70% down, give up and sell. And also in the meantime, you miss out on stocks that are actually going up. So I'm not a bag holding aficionado. I don't think it's a great strategy. I think you just miss out on other opportunities, and you lose the will to invest because it is no longer fun to look at your portfolio. So I wouldn't buy individual stocks. I would stick with the index, because we basically have a 200 years of data on that or something that basically tells us buying the dip on the index is a pretty good idea, isn't it, Winston? I think he says yes. Does he say yes? He looks like he's pretty calm about that. And what's number 8? Stay calm and get some help. Seriously. the best time and the best motivator to actually go out there and seek help is when you're hurting. Because why do we get help? Because it's a pain point, right? It's like, I need more money. I wish I had more money. I wish I could retire sooner. I wish I could retire in more style. I wish I wasn't worried about my stocks. I wish I was sleeping better. If any of those things resonate with you, go and watch the masterclass I've recorded for you, felixprehn.org/get free, because my goal is for you to get free. That's really the whole mission here of our little community. And there is also an option there, there's a button you can click where you can have a chat with my team if you like, and that's zero pressure. That's just a friendly conversation for you to get some answers and for you to ask lots and lots of questions and see whether you want to learn directly from me and my team of former Wall Street bankers and Wall Street hedge fund guys. And we've got 3 or 4 market makers on the team. I think 4 now, don't we? Winston and of course Winston with his great stock picks. And I share what I do and everything else in that community. But it's really intended for people who want to learn the skills. My goal is to make you independently successful and ensure that you don't need me anymore. That's really the goal here. So if you got some value out of this video, go and watch that class, because that's going to be so much more value packed into 15 minutes than I could ever do in this one. And let me know down below by writing freedom in the comments. And I wish you a beautiful weekend as Winston is trying to eat some ants. Winston, any final words? Have you got any snacks? I think that's what he's thinking about, isn't it? Go watch that masterclass, my friends. Take care. Good boy.
Felix here. And if you're worried what your favorite tech stocks are going to do today, then Tallulah and I, my chief financial analyst, are going to tell you exactly that. You found the right video. We're going to run you through the S&P, the Nasdaq, Palantir, VIX, Tesla, Apple, SoFi, Microsoft, Google, Nvidia, PayPal, Amazon, and Meta, plus a bonus stock that was flagged as a huge breakout yesterday that this little monster